Hello, my name is Alec Zimmerman, and I am going to look deep into several pages from the book The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is a book about many different but similar people living in New York during the Roaring Twenties. The author, Fitzgerald, implores his readers to gaze upon this time with a saddened view. Fitzgerald considered this time as an illusion, a fantasy we had created to distract ourselves from the unsatisfied reality of our lives. All of the characters in this story indulge in this lifestyle, but a huge message coming away from the story is not everyone can play this game and win. Specifically, only a particular pool of people can, and that is the real rich. The rich that has always been rich and always will be. This is, to Fitzgerald, the flaw of the American dream. And these ideas are what my scene strongly expresses. I'm going to read and dive into the meaning and all other sorts of literary things on the pages 178 to 179. This is the second to last scene in the book, and tells us a huge amount about the story, the journey, the characters, and about Fitzgerald and his purpose in writing this piece of literature. In this scene, Nick, the narrator of the story and a key character, runs into Tom Buchanan, who is only but an acquaintance to Nick now in the story, nothing more, nothing less. Nick never liked Tom, but at first part of this was jealousy of what Tom had and he didn't, and still is part of it. But Nick blames Tom for Gatsby's death, and I believe at this point in the story, Nick empathizes for Gatsby and sees much of himself in Gatsby. The hope he had for more, for anything and everything one wants. And Nick witnessed Gatsby's dream become so close to reality, and then he saw it crushed by Tom. Tom was the villain holding everyone down in their place. So starting this scene, Nick shows us how fed up he is by giving a demeaning description of Tom's appearance and character. First paragraph is, "One afternoon, late in October, I saw Tom Buchanan. He was walking ahead of me along Fifth Avenue in his alert, aggressive way. His hands out a little from his body as if to fight off interference, his head moving sharply here and there, adapting itself to his restless eyes. Just as I slowed up to avoid overtaking him, he stopped and began frowning into the windows of a jewelry store. Suddenly he saw me and walked back, holding out his hand." Nick at the beginning of this story wanted the life of Tom. Endless money, girls, and freedom. What more could one want is the real question, right? That's what Fitzgerald asks. Nick starts the story ambitious, and by the end of the story realizes this life he dreamed of is nothing worth dreaming over. After observing both sides of rich, new, and old, Gatsby and Tom, he saw no more happiness came out of this chase. The part of this paragraph I thought was most interesting to me was Nick's line about Tom frowning in the jewelry store. I think this intrigued me because I thought this could have many interpretations. Tom could be frowning at his thoughts of Daisy and how he had hurt her. He could be frowning about Myrtle and how she was taken from him and the memories they had. Or he could be frowning at the thought of how much money it's going to cost to win back Daisy's love, which would be my favorite, but I think this one is less likely because Tom wouldn't worry about money. But maybe it is a little bit of all three. Basically, I thought frowning was a good word choice that added many layers of depth to the paragraph and fit the mood of the text at the same time. Because no one is happy, not even the people who can't come out the best. Their conversation begins, "What's the matter, Nick? Do you object to shaking hands with me?" "Yes, you know what I think of you." "You're crazy, Nick," he said quickly. "Crazy as hell. I don't know what's the matter with you." All book, Nick had not stated his judgments. We've heard them all, but the characters hadn't. Nick was past his traditional character by now, though. He had had it. This is the point we as readers were waiting for, to see Nick get so angered to his core by these people that it causes him to write this story in the first place, as he said in the opening pages. Nick tells Tom, "You know what I think of you." No holding back. The gloves are out of the bag. It's time to swing. Tom inquired, "What did you say?" Oh, Nick inquires to Tom, "What did you say to Wilson that afternoon. He stared at me without a word, and I knew I had guessed right about those missing hours. I started to turn away, but he took a step after me and grabbed my arm. I told him the truth, he said. He came to the door while we were getting ready to leave, and when I sent down word that we weren't in, he tried to force his way upstairs. He was crazy enough to kill me if I hadn't told him who owned the car. His hand was on a revolver in his pocket every minute he was in the house. He broke off defiantly. What if I did tell him? That fellow had it coming to him. He threw dust into your eyes just like he did in Daisy's, but he was a tough one. He ran over Myrtle like you'd run over a dog and never even stopped his car. On the other side, and a key part of the dialogue in this scene, is both people believe they are right. Tom would have done the same thing over and over again. As much as many of us would hate to admit it, we would do a similar thing. He does what he thought was right to do. And Tom says, "You're crazy, Nick. Crazy as hell." His point proven. Nick says, "There was nothing more I could say except the one utterable fact that it wasn't true." And I think this is an important part of the scene because it shows that it's all perspective. Tom's viewpoint, he's doing a good thing, and Nick couldn't be more on the other pole. And if you think I didn't have my share of suffering, look here. When I went to give up that flat and saw the damn box of dog biscuits sitting there on the sideboard, I sat down and cried like a baby. By God, it was awful. Tom is the villain in the story. Most root for the mysterious, long-lost love romantic Gatsby. And also see Tom as a brute, as Daisy so wonderfully describes early in the story. But this scene helps us understand Tom more. Tom doesn't seem worse at the end of this. I think he just seems more human. I couldn't forgive him or like him, but I saw that what he had done was to him entirely justified. It was all very careless and confused. They were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness, or whatever it was that kept them together, and let other people clean up the mess they had made. I shook hands with him. It seemed silly not to, for I felt suddenly as though I were talking to a child. Then he went into the jewelry store to buy a pearl necklace, or perhaps only a pair of cuff buttons. Rid of my provincial squeamishness forever. I believe this is a great description of Tom and Daisy as well as the people of the same status living in this time. Retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness or whatever it was that kept them together and let other people clean up the mess they made. What Fitzgerald means to say that this is what people are like on the top. This is what they were like. One may want to change it, but they're staying there, and all one can really do is hope for better. But what does hope really do? And that's my presentation.